we're very grateful that you joined our London-wide lobby. Our concern was that TfL was being used potentially as a political football, and from the business perspective, we just wanted transport to continue in a smooth, efficient way. So we're very grateful that you joined our lobby on TfL, and what we're interested to know is how you feel TfL can be run in a sustainable manner going forward.
On what's been going on with TfL and continues to go on, I'm afraid it is being used as a political football. There's no two ways about it. And I think you've only got to look at how the train operating companies have been treated, where they've had 18-month deals to get them through the pandemic. Whereas with TfL, it's been a series of short-term deals, with the current one due to finish at the end of March, I believe, next year, just before the London elections. So unfortunately, we've had sort of threats to under 18s free travel, which has finally been taken off the table, as well as all these threats to extend the congestion zone, as well as hiking up council tax in London, so that government is not necessarily providing the support to TfL that it needs. Now, London is a powerhouse of the UK economy. It's not just Londoners using London transport. Absolutely. It is millions of people from outside of London who are using London transport every single week. And therefore, the argument that during a global pandemic, when far fewer people are travelling into London, the government shouldn't be providing some sort of medium-term settlement to support what is absolutely crucial to our, not just London, but UK-wide economy, I think is absurd. In terms of how we get it more sustainable, it's quite difficult to answer that question, because I think our travel patterns in terms of commuting are going to be changed for good as a result of this pandemic. I can't imagine we are going to revert back to the 5 days a week going from the suburbs or the home counties into central London as a working pattern. I think we'll see much more blended home office working, and therefore in terms of going forward, how that can keep TfL sustainable, I'm sure you're going to have to see a revision of fare structures in terms of sort of part-time travel cards and season tickets and so on. I think there needs to be, there'll need to be a rethink. I don't have the solution to that now, but I think what's really important is in the medium term, there needs to be a fair ongoing settlement to support TfL, because you can't have transport in London collapsing if we're going to make a recovery.
Yeah, so it needs a rethink, actually.
Yes. But I also don't think this idea of extending out the congestion zone, as was being put on the table, this sort of sabre rattling and making all Londoners, I mean, frankly, a pensioner in Hampton, why should they have to pay an extra charge on their council tax when someone from Hitchin and Harpenden who commutes in every day doesn't have to pay an extra charge?
It's not fair.
So I think it needs to be looked through the fare structures. I don't think we should be extending out the congestion charge zone as far as they wanted. That would really impact businesses, particularly in this borough, given where they were looking at extending out the congestion charge zone. So it will need to be looked at, I think, through the fare structures as well as whatever subsidies national government gives. But it's very short-sighted to cut London loose like that, and I'm afraid it plays into that sort of political north-south agenda that versus south agenda which the government seems to be playing, sadly.
It seems.
Absolutely passionate about us tackling, reducing our carbon emissions and tackling the climate emergency, and changing how we travel is absolutely key to that. And there have been various schemes that have been put in terms of more cycle lanes and safer cycling to encourage people to use more greener forms of transport. We've also seen more of our sort of school streets areas put in. And I think the important thing about any such schemes is that you're working in hand with the local community to ensure that, because actually quite often local people are very supportive of these schemes because they want to reduce a lot of the vehicle movements in their roads and so on, particularly around schools. But it's also got to be done in a practical way that doesn't impact massively on those who are running their businesses from home or need services, for instance, care services and other services to come in. So I think that the lesson there from some of the interactions I've had, for instance, around the school streets schemes is around community engagement, working in partnership to, whether that's with businesses or residents, to make sure that schemes work for them. It's hard for me to comment much on LTNs, but I think there are all sorts of ways that we can be looking at reducing people's carbon footprints.
And it's our behaviours, isn't it, which is what you're saying, and working with people to...
And improving public transport as well. And even here, we know that there are parts of the borough that are actually quite difficult to access by public transport, and improving bus links and train links. Hampton being a prime example. One of the things that I was very, very vocal on before the pandemic, when people stopped using the trains, was around the Shepperton line and the fact that the Hampton service is so infrequent and so unreliable. So trying to improve the train services, trying to make sure there's more bus services, all of those things will help reduce vehicle movements. And without necessarily having these very, very disruptive measures potentially, such as LTNs.